Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today let's go over the market because what a doozy of a day today. So we'll go over the market, talk about what happened, what we can expect, all that good stuff. I didn't make a video yesterday. I'll be completely honest, a new patch came out for a game I'm playing. I was just very much playing that the whole time. I was watching stocks on the side, but nothing happened that, pretty much everything I said on Tuesday was still completely relevant yesterday, so I figured there's no point. And I mean, at this point, you guys should be seeing some of the things that are happening because they're pretty much the things that I keep talking about over and over and over again, right? So yeah, we'll go over regardless. I'll quickly recap yesterday, what happened, this move, etc. And yeah, and potentially what's next. So let's, if you guys enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. I just came back from the gym, so I apologize if I'm a little bit out of breath, but let's just jump right into it. So Tesla completely crashing today, down almost 7%, putting us at just shy of $269, right? So yesterday, the move was pretty bad initially, and then we kind of regathered, essentially, again, just, playing out this bear flag that I talked about. I said several times, I'm like, this is a very textbook bear flag. I don't see why we wouldn't play it out, blah, blah, blah. I mentioned that several times. I talked about how we kind of came back into it and whatnot. Anyway, the point is the fact that, I said that there's no reason that this bear flag shouldn't play out. And that's exactly what happened, right? On top of that, what happened yesterday was we also came up to this exact same level, and we most importantly closed below it. We couldn't close above it, as you can see, which was the gap fill that we talked about that we got rejected here. We came up, got rejected again, couldn't close above it, pretty much at the same level, if not lower. So that's essentially like quite bearish, right? So on top of being in a bear flag and not being able to close above this gap fill, which was the level that we already failed at, so we failed it twice inside of bear flag, guys, that is just a recipe for disaster. Right, I don't play puts. I don't like buying puts. I don't really like buying options. I love selling options. So I personally didn't really enter any positions, which is one of those scenarios where, technically it still could have went higher. It's just the odds were definitely in the favor of going down, but it's not something I would want to play. It's just not my style. It's not what I do. It's not my thing. I lose more than I gain playing that kind of style, so I just don't. But essentially what happened was we finally broke out of this bear flag. Pretty much retested it a little bit in the morning. You can see here, a little bit of a wick. And the second that retest failed, we just completely crashed. And that's it. That's really all. That's all it really is, ladies and gentlemen. It's really not that hard. It's quite a simple pattern. Like I said, I called this being an absolute textbook bear flag, and we came down quite aggressively, right? Crashed almost like 7%. That's quite a bit. Yeah. So it is what it is, right? It's fine. I'm not worried. In fact, I'm excited personally, mainly because again, all I had was 100 shares that I even sold calls against, which makes my average on those 100 shares at like 272. So and the rest of it, I'm straight cash. Well, I was at least. I entered bullish positions today, of course. But nonetheless, let's talk about what we can expect. So the question I'm sure most of you are wondering, is this the bottom? Are we finally at the bottom? Can we finally start rallying? Are we going to start rallying? Is this it? Are we good now? The answer is maybe. The answer is definitely a maybe. So there's a few things we'll talk about, right? The first and foremost being that we came down to one of the levels I've talked about. I did say how I think personally this major range between this 267 to this 256 personally, I think is going to be the ultimate buy range. And in my opinion, the worst case realistic scenario would be this gap fill all the way down here at this 248-ish area. To me, that's the realistic worst case scenario. Essentially this line right here, we'll put it right there. To me, this line right here is essentially the realistic worst case scenario that we'll go down to and crash towards before our real bounce happens. So this is why it's really hard to exactly call where the bounce will happen perfectly. However, I definitely think this area right here is the first level of many. There's 4 levels under it. So keep in mind that there is still a decent chance that we do ultimately go lower. Honestly, maybe even tomorrow or Monday, right? I definitely think that there is almost a 50% chance of a probability of that happening. So I want to make that very clear. I have entered some bullish positions, about half of my portfolios, 2 portfolios. One is much smaller. That one is in shares. Half the portfolio is in shares at the moment. Pretty much average price of 269. So just barely under or just barely above where we closed, which is fine. But again, the reason I'm keeping it like that, I'm not going full bullish on a minus 7% day, which sounds like a lot, which it is mainly because I personally still think we can go lower. And the main reason is because again, even though this is a decent support, you can see we did bounce off of this twice before this major rally. And this, of course, potentially being that area again. I also think it's personally not only a little too obvious, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we go a little bit lower because this bear flag cracking below it, this isn't really long enough, in my opinion, to play out what the bear flag should. It's possible, it is possible, but I personally would be surprised if we don't come down to 262 at least. I personally think that we should come down to this red line of around 262 to 256. Anywhere in this range, I personally think we should, in theory, visit. mainly because it just makes sense to play out this pattern. That's just kind of where I see it, right? So it's really hard to say. It's extremely hard to say. Like maybe come down to the point 1.618, like right at this 260 level would just make sense to me, right? That's just the level I personally think that we might come down to. Now, the reason I entered now and I didn't just wait for this 260 level is because, well, there's obviously a chance that we don't, right? There's of course always a chance that we don't. I don't have a fortune teller, ball or crystal ball or whatever. I can't predict exactly, what level we'll go to when, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? The market is obviously nowhere near that easy, which is why I'm entering these kind of positions. Now, my main account is in sold puts, where essentially I sold a bunch of puts for October 21st, pretty much all the way down here, like at these levels right here, right? Mainly because I think between I think 260 is like my closest one, and everything else is pretty much at like 250, 247, 245, 240. Like that's essentially why I sold my puts, mainly because if we actually do come down to the level, well, that's exactly the level I want to buy it anyways, right? That's that's my ultimate level to play for the bounce coming up in October, which I strongly believe we will still get. So if we come down all the way there, hey, no worries. Not only will I just sell more puts, but I'll just buy more shares. That's not a problem with me. I'm not too worried, and that's why I've entered these kind of positions, because I always want to leave room that just in case the stock goes down, it will of course still play out that way. Now, moving along very quickly to the technicals on the daily, we'll talk about, it shouldn't be too, there's no really reason to do this, mainly because I think it's quite obvious we are in a downtrend. Below the 21 EMA, almost at the red line of the Bollinger Band, which I still think we might actually go over and touch potentially. Well below the 50, well below the 200, well below the 5 and the 10, of course, right? Not surprising. This really shouldn't be anything new to anyone watching now. Taking a look on the daily, you can see that the daily has crossed down even further. It has made a lower low, which is not good. That essentially tells me that we are still ultimately in a massive downtrend, and that overall this downtrend is not done yet. Even if we get this rally in October, which I still think we will, it just tells me that this overall downtrend is not completed yet, and we most likely will go even lower. Whether that's right this very moment or we get the October rally and then go lower is the question, but we will go lower. I'm like 99% sure, right? Moving along to the shorter time frames, and this is where it starts getting interesting. Remember how on Tuesday I mentioned how what I want to see is I want to see Tesla make a lower low compared to this over here. And I want to see that happen with the RSI not making a lower low. That's essentially what I said. And that's essentially what we got today. We came down, made a lower low compared to here. And then ultimately the RSI actually did not make a lower low. It did make a higher low on these time frames. The 4 hours, the only one that looks a little more questionable. But even then you can definitely argue this is a higher low. But as long as you go on to the shorter time frames, you can see the stock made a lower low, but pretty much almost every single time frame we'd made a higher low, which is a good sign. This is exactly this is almost picture perfect as to what I talked about on Tuesday that I wanted to see. Again, I do want to make it clear that does not mean that we cannot go a little bit lower. I still personally think we can potentially go lower somewhere around potentially that's not what I wanted. Let's take out this right here. So we can potentially go up down another 2%, 4%, or maybe in my opinion, worst case scenario, another 7% before the actual bounce for October happens. So, hey, essentially another day like today, and I think, we're ready to bounce. Worst case scenario, realistically, right? So that's essentially what I'm seeing at the very moment, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, it is what it is, right? So this is definitely the first level to bounce, mainly because we already did that twice, which led to this massive rally. So keep in mind, this is the first level. None of this is financial advice, by the way. Make your own decisions, do your own research. But yeah, so that's essentially what I'm seeing, ladies and gentlemen. The VIX, you can see, is looking quite good. It is getting rejected. It is also making a head and shoulders pattern, which is a bearish pattern right here. So, this head and shoulders pattern right here setting up on the VIX, which tells me that we are probably about to get that October rally just any second now, pretty much any second now. The second the VIX pretty much cracks below, honestly, even 30. The second the VIX falls back down under 30, I think is when we potentially might play out this head and shoulders pattern on the VIX. Probably fall down quite aggressively, starting to make a little bit of a bearish divergence on the VIX as well. So ultimately, I do think the VIX is going to be probably crashing a little bit here, which gives us room to have this October rally that's coming up for the market. That doesn't mean that the VIX can go up a little bit more, just to play out this one more leg lower that I personally wouldn't be surprised if the market makes. Like the SPY can potentially come down to one of these 350 levels down here somewhere, right? And that of course will pretty much make Tesla come down to, at the very least, this 262 level, if not 256, if not even all the way down to 248. But personally, again, not financial advice, this whole area right here is accumulation zone for the October rally. I could be completely wrong. we could maybe crash down to like $1 for all I know, right? Again, take it as you will, make your own decisions, right? Do your own research, all that good stuff. None of this is financial advice, but that is what I'm seeing. Those are the positions I'm currently entering. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling excited. I know a lot of people are probably not very happy with this red, but you know, I'm ecstatic. I love it. I think this is fantastic. I'm finally entering the positions I wanted to, that I've been waiting for very patiently all the way up here. Yeah, and I couldn't be happier. I really, you know, I mean, I could be happier. I want it to go even lower personally, but we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, as long as you guys have been hopefully following, you know, what I've been saying and listening and not being, you know, I guess too ignorant, if you will. Not to say that I'm always correct. Of course, I could be wrong easily. You know, again, I've been calling these moves ever since all the way up here, guys. I said that Tesla's going to crash up here, right? And pretty much ever since here, we have fallen in literally just a matter of weeks about 15%, which is quite a bit, right? So just saying, guys. I even talked about this right here, how I'm like, this move right here reminds me a lot of here, where people were like, you know, bullish and, you know, blah, 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 you know, thinking that's going to keep going up and that's it, we're good. Nah, it's just not that easy, man. It's not that easy. Also, this was just the most textbook bear flag you can ask for. Like, it really, you just can't get a more textbook bear flag than this. You really can't. This is just the epitome of a bear flag. This is something you put in textbooks to teach people what a bear flag is, like straight up. It's just perfect. But nonetheless, that's it for the video, guys. Let me know what you think down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm feeling good. I think it bounces around the corner. Doesn't mean it's tomorrow. Doesn't mean it's Monday, but I think it's going to be very, very soon. So good luck to everyone playing. And I'll see you guys for tomorrow's weekend closure update. Until then, thanks for watching. Peace.